And according to the specs I'm reading, this is a palladium silver Spyderco logo inlay on that handle. I don't know what palladium silver is, guys. I'm sorry, I forgot to look it up. Hello my YouTube friends, Late Boy Scout here with my review of the Spyderco Centofante 3. I'm very, very impressed with this knife, and I'm going to start off by saying that. I have had my eye on it for quite a while and wanted to check this thing out. It sounded great, it looked great. I wanted to get one in hand and see how I liked it, and honestly guys, I am more than impressed with this knife. It's become one of my everyday carry favorites. And that's a surprise to me because I don't generally favor lockback knives. So why would I favorite this one? Check this out. Yeah! Wow! And hold on a second. The lockup is really tight. Really tight. No real detectable movement whatsoever. And honestly, flicking it open with the back lock, yeah, I could do this all day, guys. How is that easy? It may just be that this knife is broken in. I did buy it secondhand. But for you to be able to do that with a lockback knife, that's pretty cool. Not too many of them that I own can I do that with them. Anyway, so that's one reason I really dug it. Also, just the looks in general. Really good looking, isn't it? I mean, it's very, very sharp on that side. On this side, it's a bit plainer looking, and I'm glad it doesn't look like that on both sides. Yeah, a little bit plainer looking for the pocket clip, and of course to show some wear, but don't get all bent out of shape for that. The pocket clip is not getting bent out of shape, it's doing just fine. It is reversible to tip up or tip down, whichever you prefer. I prefer tip up. Get confused on that sometimes. And of course, a beautiful Spyderco inlay here. And according to the specs I'm reading, this is a palladium silver Spyderco logo inlay on that handle. I don't know what palladium silver is, guys. I'm sorry, I forgot to look it up. It's pinned construction, and you might consider that a downside, and I might too if it weren't for the fact that it's got a pretty tight lockup that I just cannot complain about. And also the fact that it's kind of easy to get in there and clean out whatever you need to. There's not much room for anything to accumulate. Just get a little bit of compressed air or something like that, or just blow it, and it'll be fine. It gets all the dust and lint out of there, no problem. Haven't had any problem keeping this knife nice and clean. And it deploys super fast, not only by way of the back lock, but that's one of the fastest deploying back locks I've ever seen. I mean, it's pretty effortless. Yeah, you can get that to fly out. That's so cool. Really, really cool. We'll talk about that jimping on the back there. It's a little dirty, sorry about that. But super sharp. Look at that. Yeah, that is nice. It really locks my thumb in there, which is a very good thing because there's not a whole lot of traction otherwise on the knife. Nothing here, there. It's got some grooves in it, which they say offer traction, but I wouldn't say that. It just offers looks, really, and a little bit of texture. Sometimes if you're using this thing and you're not looking at it or whatever, it's nice to kind of rub your thumb on there and kind of know where you are with this knife and orient yourself, right? That's smart. The blade shape is gorgeous. It's really attractive. It's I don't know what you would call that. Sort of the Spyderco with the little ramp here. They've got that very often on a lot of their knives, and it's almost a kind of a hump that sticks up away from the rest of the blade. But then it's got this sort of dropping spear point going on, which is just really, really cool. Really cool. An unsharpened swedge right here. And the blade itself is hollow ground, giving you the ability to have a nice fine edge on this thing. Really, really fine edge. The VG10 steel, by the way, takes a fantastic edge. Holds it pretty well. But the fact that it takes it easily, that's huge for me. Huge for me. It takes a really, really fine one, you know? That's really cool. Obviously a nice, sharp, piercing point on it. Really dig that. The Centofante 3 is obviously the third Centofante collaboration that Spyderco's made. There's also a Centofante 4. I didn't mention, by the way, Frank Centofante, who collaborated with Spyderco on these knives. The 2009, he passed away, and that's real sad. We don't have him around anymore to make awesome knives, but the guy knew his stuff. He's a former president of the Knife Making Guild, which is, you know, kind of a well-respected group, and, you know, they a bunch of guys that know their stuff when it comes to making knives. So that's saying something. And, you know, the fact that Spyderco was able to get a collaboration with him is pretty huge, and they obviously did very well in that collaboration. So as I mentioned before, this is the third in that series of collaborations. There was a fourth as well. And you could still buy either one of them, the 3 or the 4. The 3 kind of, the 2 and the, well, I guess, yeah, the 2 and the 3 were sort of solving problems that were in the previous versions of the knife and kind of finishing off little things like adding this little detent here. And I'm trying to remember what the other change was, but fixing a couple of things that they didn't have quite perfect on the knife. Then, you know, so the 3 is sort of like, that's the one that they really intended for us to have. Then the 4, well, the 4 is very much the same as this one, almost identical, except instead of a sort of semi-spear point going on here, you have a Wharncliffe blade shape. Wharncliffe, if you're not familiar with it, means that this area here is not rounded up, creating a sort of belly. Instead, it's very flat, and this curves downward to meet it and create a point kind of doing that, if that makes sense. Okay? That's what a Wharncliffe blade shape is. You've probably seen one before. If not, just Google Centofante 4 and you'll probably find it. For the price, and what is the price? In the $59, $60 neighborhood for the Centofante 3. For the price, this is a pretty dang good knife. And, you know, a lot of other VG10 steel having knives that Spyderco puts out, the Delica, the Endura, all come in around that price range too. So if you would rather have something that looks a little more gentlemanly, very nice thin blade, okay, for getting some fine cutting done and some just great everyday work, then this might be the one you would want to choose. If you want to save some money, however, there are certainly competitive options out there. I think I've spoken to why I like this knife so much, so let's bring in some competitors and just see if this one holds up. Well, Spyderco makes many of its own competitors, and there's one. That's the Tenacious. It's a great knife too. The 8CR 13 MOV steel on this knife is perfectly adequate. It's made in China, whereas this one is made in Seki City, Japan. Okay, so expect slightly better quality from the Japanese one, or some folks will argue. How about Kershaw Chill, if I can get this sucker out. Also an 8CR 13 MOV Chinese-made knife. However, price-wise, and I didn't mention the Tenacious, which is about $35. Price-wise, this is sub-20 in a lot of places. It's got a nice kind of a stone-washed finish going on there. Really, really cool knife. Love that one. And it gets a lot of the same work done. Let's line them up this way, actually, so that you see a little bit of a better you know, comparison going on here. Still a couple left to go. How about the Kershaw Oh So Sweet? This one is the AUS 6 version, whatever, 6A or whatever. Anyway, the AUS 6 version. Not the best steel, but, you know, it's just a representation of the current one. That's the 8CR 13 MOV. Right in the neighborhood, right in the ballpark with size, okay, blade size. Very, very similar. And as far as just utility work that you'll get done, certainly in the same ballpark. A little bit heavier. This is a little bit heavier as well. The Chill is going to be lighter, actually. Slightly lighter. This one is a little over 2 ounces. This one is a little under 2 ounces, I'm going to say. But they're very, very similar knives in utility as far as that's concerned. And here's one, kind of breaks the mold with throwing in some pink into the screen. Sorry, I don't mean to burn your eyes out. That one is the K-Bar Dozier design, and it runs, let's see, in the sub $20 knife, and it's AUS 8A steel, which is on par with the 8CR 13 MOV. And as far as just your blade shape is concerned, really, really close. Also a hollow grind, also a sort of a spear point. Also got some nice jimping on top of it. Also a back lock. Pocket clips are not too different. Okay, the handle material is very similar, sort of an FRN. Where is this one made? Taiwan, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Taiwan. So, you know, you get almost, pretty much all the same utility in this knife as you get with this one for a much lower price. But you don't get the Centofante name, and if that's special to you, which it probably is if you care about knives, then you're going to be very interested in this knife. Well, that's it, guys. That is my review of the Spyderco Centofante 3. I absolutely love it. I'm really glad I picked this one up. Thank you very much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you on the next one.